We're going to the developing Prix St. George, okay? The developing Prix St. George is horses between the 7 and 9 years old. This is an American test. It's only in the United States. The FEI, we developed this several years ago. The FEI 2 years ago came out with a 7-year-old test that it's kind of interesting. The test itself is a Prix St. George type of test, but the judge at C judges it like a regular test, and then there's 2 judges on the side who judge it like the 5 and 6-year-old test. And then you combine the scores. But that is for international, that's FEI, so I think the only place it's really being offered is in CDIs, if you wanted to go to the World Breeders' Championships in Europe. I'm going to talk a little bit about the young horse test. We don't have any young horse. We were thinking about doing the 4-year-old test today, but we didn't. If your horse is 4 years old, it does not mean that you should sign up for the 4-year-old test. If your horse is 5, it does not necessarily mean we should do the 5-year-old test, okay? And it's especially important with 6-year-olds. Those tests are designed for the horse that's going to be in the NFL, okay? It is not based on their age. It's based upon their talent at that age. And especially the 6-year-old test is extremely difficult. It's more difficult than 3rd level test 3 by far. And if they're not mentally ready, they might be physically ready, or they might look like they're physically ready, but they really aren't. It can overface them. So you have to have an extremely talented horse, extremely talented horse, and they have to be at their training level where they can handle the test, because the tests are difficult. The 4-year-old test is equivalent to a 1st level test. The 5-year-old test is equivalent to 2nd level. And the 6-year-old test is a very, very difficult 3rd level test. After the 6-year-old test comes the developing Prix St. George, which is the ride that we're going to see today. This is for 7 to 9-year-old horses. We have changed it a little bit for those of you who knew the test before. There was a 5-loop serpentine at the canter that required 2 flying changes within it. I kind of liked it myself, but I have to admit, I thought it was fun to ride, but most people hate it. So it's gone. But in its place are the 2 canter half circles with the counter and canter half circle. So you're not getting off easy. You got what you wanted. You got rid of your 5-loop serpentine, so be careful what you ask for, because I think these are actually harder. But anyway, that's the major change in the test. And then we also changed the extended walk line of travel, because we used to only have, the extended walk used to be to H, and the only collected walk was from H to C, which is pretty short for us to be giving you a score. So now the extended walk goes to S. I am reading that right, aren't I? Yeah. And so now there's more for us to see, so we can give you an honest collected walk score. Okay? So we will start this test and see how it goes. Haunches slightly to the left in the canter and the halt, 6.5. Needs more angle, tempo a little bit quick, 6.5. Needs more angle with shoulders, 6.5. Needs more collection, a little bit hurried, 7. Needs more bend, 6.5. Good ground cover, slightly hurried, 7. 7.5 for the transitions. Could be more direct to halt. Could be more active back, 6.5. Could cover more ground and reach to bit even more. She's listening. I like that. 7. Walk gets a little tentative. Rhythm insecure. 6. A little short in neck, 7. Could have more collection, 7. Expressive, 8. Oopsie. Loses lead, 4. Good recovery, 7. Good ground cover, try not to hurry, 7. Needs clearer transition, 6.5. Slightly large, 6.5. Short neck, 7. Slightly large, 6. Could be more at C, 6.5. Last change, crooked, running out of room, 6.5. Needs more collection, 7. Goes past center line, needs bend, 6. Not quite straight and hurried, 6.5. Could carry more behind, 7. 7. Could have smoother turn at I. Halt fairly straight. Did you ever ride the other developing Prix St. George test? Did you ever ride the other developing Prix St. George test? Okay. Has anybody in here ridden the old one? What did you think watching it compared to the old one? Yeah. Yeah. I did too. I really liked the Serpentine. Yeah. The only thing I don't like is it's just repetition of 4-3 now is the only thing I have against it, but.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that 5-lip serpentine.
Me too. I liked it.
Remember back in
I know, I liked it. I liked it a lot, but it's gone, so there we go. Too many people complained. So, anyway, my biggest comment, my final comment to her would be careful not to get hurried. Speed doesn't match energy. Okay, needs a bit more collection. But nice horse. He's not a 7-year-old, but we don't have to tell that. Okay. Yeah, he's a really nice horse and did a nice job. I just think you need to have a little bit more collection for higher scores to get up into the 70s. It's a little bit rushed. So, any questions on that? There's also a developing Grand Prix test. It's for 8 through 10. And it is also not any easier than the what? In some ways it is. But it's not easy, let me put it that way. And with the developing Grand Prix, they use the I-2 for the first day and then the developing Grand Prix for the second day. It's a little bit easier than the Grand Prix. Uh-oh, the poinsettia is flying away. Any questions on that? Yep. Yes.
Do you know the end of the 7-year-old?
Yes, I talked about that. Yeah. There is an FEI 7-year-old division now, and you have one judge at C. I mentioned that judges just like this, and then 2 judges on the side that judge the gates. Yeah. I've judged it a couple times. It's kind of interesting. It's you can't do it at a show where you only have one judge, but I don't know how it's going on the year. I haven't talked to any of my European friends to see what they think of it. Our judges forum next year will be at Verdun, so yes. It's amazing. If you ever get the opportunity to go to the World Breeders' Championships for the young, it's over the top amazing. Any questions? Terry? Her question is, like the regular Prix St. George, if you don't do it right at the movement, you get nailed. And at this test, where we a bit more lenient. I would have to say in this test, I'm not. But in the developing Grand Prix, I'm a little bit, I think of it more like an I-2. So they are allowed to travel a little bit and that kind of thing. Yeah. The 4, 5, and 6-year-old tests, we don't judge every movement, okay? And especially with the 4-year-olds, if they start out a little bit tense and then they start to rely, especially at the championships, it's the most electric environment you've ever seen. It's unbelievable. And if the horse starts out a little bit tense and they improve and they get better, we pretty much kind of blow that off. Okay, and we don't have to, but if the tension remains, then it goes into the submission score. But if they go off course, there is a deduction, okay? But if they're a little bit late on a transition or something like that, maybe our submission score might not be quite as high, but I'm not as hung up on the exact details, but they do have to stay on course. We do give errors if they go off course on those tests, even though we're not scoring each movement. So usually what we have is we typically have 2 to 3 judges in the box. You have to have a minimum of 2 for it to count as a qualifier. One of the judges has to be actually certified to do the young horse tests. Or maybe it's changed now to both of us do. I can't remember. I am, so don't worry about it. And we usually have 2 scribes, if at all possible. One scribe does the scribing. It's the most difficult test to scribe for because you are bantering along with your other judge, and then you turn to them and say, okay, write down ba-da-da-da-da-da, and then you go back and talk to them, okay, write down ba-da-da-da-da. So you have to be a good scribe to scribe for them. It's not easy. It's not the place you want to learn to scribe, okay? If somebody asks you if you'll come learn and that we'll put you in the young horse to begin with, say no. Unless you are the second scribe who watches the test to make sure the rider is staying on course. Because as the judges, we're so focused on the gaits and the rideability and stuff, we don't want to pay attention to whether they're on course. So we usually have a second scribe in the box to just tell us if they've gone off course. Okay? Because we don't, it's very difficult to worry about that when you're doing the young horse classes. Any other questions on that? Did I hear somebody over here? Oh yeah, it's you again. What? Because we already had the developing Prix St. George, and I think it's, at this point, it would be quite difficult. The question was, why don't we do the 7-year-old test in the United States? The developing Prix St. George has been very successful, okay? It's very user-friendly, it's very popular, it's very successful, etc. The 7-year-old test is more complicated to just do, not from a riding standpoint, but from a judging standpoint, scribing standpoint, etc. It's more of a production. So I think that's part of it. And I was on the Young Horse Committee when it first came out, and the decision at that time was we wanted to watch and see how it went in Europe and see if it's successful before we decide. We used to have our own Brentina Cup test. You guys remember that? And we led the way with that. And then FEI went, oh, that's cool. And they wrote an under 25 Grand Prix. We did eventually switch over, and the Brentina test went away. The competition is called the Brentina Cup now, but the actual test that was called the Brentina test is gone. So there's a possibility we could end up going that direction eventually, but I don't think it'll be overnight because it's a bit more of a production to do the FEI 7-year-old. And the developing Prix St. George is extremely popular. And your horse has to be getting like 72, 73% even to qualify to go to Lamplight. I think last year, 18th place was about a 73. And the top 15 get invited. So, yeah, it's very popular. It's kind of a cool division. Thank you very much.